After working with over 1,000 investors, helping them purchase over $300 million worth of property, we have realised that the process from securing a property through until settlement can be the most stressful and overwhelming time as a property investor. Now, in today's video, I've got my colleague Hayden here to talk with you about exactly what happens from when you secure a property under contract through until when you settle on that property and go and secure tenants. Hayden, thanks so much for joining us today. For everybody out there, Hayden is one of my colleagues and he has helped over 300 of our clients go from purchasing their property and holding their hand through until settlement to ensure that they've got the introductions to the necessary partners and advisors to make sure that we are dotting the I's and crossing the T's to ensure that we do safely and securely settle on that property and to try and avoid getting too stressed out throughout that journey. Now, Hayden himself has purchased 4 properties throughout his journey. He's a very experienced property investor and has more experience than most people with this particular part of the process as well. So, Hayden, thanks so much for jumping on the video today, mate. Really excited to share some ideas. So I guess first things first, let's say we've gone out there, we've developed the strategy, we've looked in the market, we've found the right property and we've secured that property at a great price, and now we are moving through to the settlement process. Now, for this example, guys, just big disclaimer, we are not mortgage brokers, we are not solicitors, we are not building and pest inspectors. This is just what we have learned from purchasing hundreds of millions of dollars of property over the years. And up here in Brisbane, more often than not, it is a private treaty sale. So this is based on the terms that you would generally put into the contract if you were going through with a private treaty sale. So let's get cracked into it, mate. Sure. I have just purchased the property. We've got the signed contract back. Big celebration. What's next?
Yeah, happy days. Just should take a deep breath and celebrate for starters, just to have a beer and enjoy what you've just done. But no, there's still a bit of work to come.
Yep.
So first things first, we received the signed and dated contract from the real estate agent. They send it through to us and the client. It's the official contract. We've got it. Sometimes it takes some time. From once you get verbal acceptance, that's the first thing we want to do is get that contract. As soon as we have it, you'll hear from myself, Crystal, someone in the team. Give you a buzz, say congrats, tell you to take a deep breath, it's all good, and we'll lock in a congratulations call for that day, later that day, next day, sometime to run through all the next steps in more detail. Before that call, basically we'll put together a really detailed congratulations email, which will have all the important dates, including the contract date, the building and pest date, the due diligence date, the finance date, settlement date, just summarising basically everything we need to know in terms of who we're going to be working with and the important dates. And at that same time, I'll send through the introduction to those referral partners. So basically, before we have our congrats call, you're going to be spent with about 5 or 6 emails, but those emails will include, that congrats one to begin with from us. It'll include an introduction to the solicitor, an introduction to the building and pest inspector, an introduction to the property manager, and an introduction to the insurance broker. So you'll receive those 4 intros plus our congrats call, and we'll have a really good catch up. Basically, when we've got that call locked in, that's when we'll run through all the next steps. Now,
best thing to do at this part of the process is to actually read the email. I think that's really important. When you get an email from your solicitor. Now, obviously, if you're out there purchasing a property yourself, you need to have all of these partners ready there to go before you purchase a property, because they're going to be kicked into gear really quickly. But what I do for all of my properties and what I recommend for all of our clients is, just getting a printout of those important dates so that you are aware as to where it's all coming. I slap mine on the fridge just so that every single day I'm checking in, knowing where we're getting closer to, because the worst thing you can do is just not prepare for this. I feel as though the more preparation that you do, the more aware that you are of what needs to happen and when, the easier and less stress that there will be. Yep. So now we've got the signed contract, we've got the congratulations email out there with all of the important dates. We've now introduced the clients to the specific partners that will support them throughout that under contract phase. Generally, what happens after that point in time?
Yeah, so on that call that I do with clients, sometimes they've jumped ahead a little bit and they got onto a few things, great, and I'm
Yep.
just picking up the pieces with what's left. Other times they haven't done a single thing, just waiting on the call, which is also fine. First things first would be paying the initial deposit. Typically it's $10,000 up here, which goes through to the real estate agent's trust account. It's where the agent ends up taking their commission from, sort of locks in the deal. It's the first step that we want to do, because it's usually payable within 2 days of the contract date.
Yep.
Next thing after that would be basically getting the contract through to your mortgage broker. So the mortgage broker is usually the one person the client's already been in contact with, obviously, because they need the confirmation that they can get finance before they just go and randomly buy a property.
You don't just go sending a contract through to a mortgage broker and say, hey mate, you got 21 days.
Yeah.
You know, you definitely want to do the preparation before this part of the process. Make sure that you got a pre-approval. Make sure that your mortgage broker has confirmed that you're in a good enough position to purchase a property at that price. But just sending it off to him, and normally the mortgage broker just does their own thing. They just work by themselves. They sort of know that they've got up until this date to secure finance approval for that particular person or property.
With them, it's pretty much just getting the ball out of your court and just getting back to them with what they need. So you might have a pre-approval, but your broker might be like, I need a few more pay slips, or basically just getting the ball out of your court and getting it back into the broker's court with whatever they need. The next step would be organising insurance. So up here in Queensland, it's a bit funny. You have to have insurance in place by 5 p.m. the business day after the contract date. So a lot of people think that it's like from settlement date. It'd probably be easier if it was, but it's not. So basically what we do there is we send, one of the intros is to the insurance broker. What it looks like with them is they'll send you an email with a list of questions on how to basically what they need to know to get insurance on your property.
Yeah.
They send you the questions. You either answer them. If you don't know how to answer them, you can either ask the insurance broker to get their guidance, or we can ask the real estate agent to help us out with a couple of those questions that we might be unsure of. Basically working with those two people to answer those questions. Once you've got those questions answered, the insurance broker will just come back to you. This is a few quotes. Pick the best one, pretty much, and you basically get that locked in as soon as possible. Super important step. Yeah,
for sure. And you know, just having a discussion with an insurance broker will answer all of the questions that you need to know about that part of the process as well. And I think that's important at every single step of the under contract phase, is just leaning on your team of advisors. Like, the best thing is you do not need to be alone throughout this process. You've got, you know, your solicitor to lean on, you've got your mortgage broker to lean on, your insurance broker to lean on, your building and pest inspector to lean on, and these people are professionals in their industry. There's no better person to talk to than that particular advisor at that point. So organising insurance is a pressing matter. That's something that you want to do relatively quickly. And then I'm assuming the next step is working with a building and pest inspector.
Next up, as you said, is the building and pest inspection. What happens with that is the inspector actually rings up the agent directly, locks in that time for that to happen, and then they'll send, the inspection company will send our clients an email saying, it's been booked in for this time, please make payment into this account. And then the client just has to basically make payment of that before they'll release the report. So that's sort of it for that for a few days. We don't do anything more with that until we get the report back.
So like the first few days is really intense. The first few days is where you've got a lot happening and you need to probably be checking your emails and actioning items every single day for the first sort of 3-4 days. And then you might have a little bit of downtime for a few days after that, until you then get the building and pest report back. And, you know, that will help you get a much deeper understanding as to the quality of the home, you know, what everything's made of, you know, how it compares to other properties, what type of works need to be rectified, whether there's major or minor issues. So it'll just help you get a much better understanding of the property and what you can potentially fix up or what needs to be fixed up. And, you know, at times in certain markets and with certain properties, you can even use this as a bit of a negotiation tool to try and reduce the purchase price on the property. I don't know, you've probably reduced, over $200,000, maybe not 200, maybe $100,000 worth of reductions on building and pests over the last 2-3 years, which is pretty cool. So can be used in certain markets, but not something that we'll talk too much about in today's video, because Ben has actually done videos on how to get a reduction from your building and pests, which you can check out on other videos on YouTube. Now, in terms of these partners, what is the solicitor's role in this whole process?
Yeah, so with the solicitor intro, they'll basically, because we send the introduction, they'll reach out via email to the client with like an introductory email, pay a deposit to them to get the ball rolling. They're probably the partner where the clients get most confused about, just because it's like they are lawyers, they've got sort of their own language. It can be a bit confusing at times. Their role is to basically just safely transfer the property from the seller into the buyer's name. It's not just like, it's your property now, like so many little checks, searches need to happen, title searches, like all these little specific things that have to happen to transfer the property officially from one person to another.
Yep.
And that's their role. Yeah.
They'll sort of make sure everything's done on time, and they'll work closely with your mortgage broker to make sure that the funds are available. And they'll just sort of be that other person that will sort of hold your hand. Now, for a lot of people that, choose to purchase properties by themselves and don't work with a buyer's agent, you'll lean on your solicitor quite heavily throughout that journey to get advice and feedback. But, a lot of solicitors don't love doing that. They just want to help settle on that loan, do what they're getting paid for. But, super, super valuable, and, they will ensure that the property ends up being yours at the end of the day if all other things come into alignment. Now, the next thing is, obviously, as an investor, you're going to be renting this property out come settlement. We like to be proactive, and rather than waiting for settlement and increasing your vacancy period is, once you've done all of the big pieces here, once you've, organised your insurance with your broker, once your finance broker is working on everything, you've done what you needed to do for the solicitors, you've got the building and pests finalised, at that point it would be very important to start the discussions with a property manager, maybe get a rental appraisal, start to get an understanding of the market, how much that property could rent for. What are some of the other things that a property manager will help you understand?
Yeah, the first thing they usually do would be provide a rental appraisal, just to give you a bit of a sense to help run your numbers.
Yep.
It's not the most pressing partner, as in you need to speak to them the day you get a property under contract. Basically, if you speak to them somewhere early on in the process just to say good day, they'll give you like some forms to fill out to engage them. Then from there, their key role is obviously vetting and finding a quality tenant for you, advertising the property the best they can. They also, if you find the right one, can help to get quotes, organise trades. So they're not like the biggest player early on, but they're probably they are the biggest person you're going to work with once you get closer to settlement and beyond settlement. The process to them, like once you get closer to settlement, ideally, if the property is tenant ready and you're not going to be doing any repairs and maintenance, would be trying to reduce that vacancy rate as much as possible and getting a tenant in there as soon as possible. And the property manager helps clients work through that by maybe getting the advertisement up before settlement. Maybe they've got a few people that they've been working with on other properties that they might be able to privately show through before settlement. Like, doesn't always happen, but the idea is to basically work with them to help get a quality tenant in there as soon as possible. Alternatively, if you are going to be doing some repairs and maintenance to maybe cosmetically upgrade the property to get more rent, you'll be getting some quotes from them pretty like early on in the process, so they can get started on those works immediately after settlement. So either way, whichever way you're going, whether you're renting it straight away or doing some repairs and maintenance, it's making sure you're working with the property manager to get those options started as soon as possible, so we can get someone in there as soon as possible.
For sure, because most property managers are working with, hundreds, if not thousands of people, and, everybody needs to maintain these properties. They need to rent these properties out. So more often than not, your property manager will have contacts with handymen, painters, landscapers, bond cleaners, lawn mowers, all of these people that you sort of need to get that property ready to rent. So you can lean on your property manager to get some quotes for any work that may need to be done. Sometimes your building and pest might shed some light. What I personally like to do is I actually send the building and pest through to my property manager prior to settlement and just say, hey, after your inspection and after reading this building and pest report, can you just let me know what items you feel need to be done to safely get a tenant into this property at the best possible price? So a lot's obviously happening in these first few weeks of purchasing an investment property, but if everybody does their job properly and if we've been prepared, hopefully it all moves through smoothly to what we call finance unconditional date, which means that's where you need to get your mortgage broker to communicate with your solicitor that he can secure finance for that deal. And once all this has been confirmed, you have to pay a balance deposit, which is sort of the final deposit to purchase the property.
Yeah, that's right. And that date, which is typically 21 days, is once you've got those conditions satisfied, that's when you become unconditional. And that balance deposit of normally around 15 grand's payable on that date into the same account as the original 10K. So you've paid 25K in deposits typically, sometimes more, sometimes less. And then as you get closer to settlement, you get what's called a settlement statement from the solicitor, which has like all this breakdown of everything basically, and it'll say less the deposit you've already paid, and it'll give you that sort of round number that's the big sort of deposit you pay at the end, like the 10 or 20% or more, whatever the client does.
Yep.
Those initial and balance deposits just get taken off of that final deposit at the end. So a bit of money sent across the process, but it all ends up the same in the end anyway. Yeah,
exactly. And then, once you've gone unconditional, it is probably the least stressful part of the process. It's now just a waiting game. It's good to touch base with every single one of your advisors at least once a week at that point in time, just to make sure everybody is prepared for settlement. I always like to get my property manager to go do a pre-settlement inspection as well, just to make sure that the previous owners have, got rid of all of their stuff, or, if there was any items that needed to get fixed, making sure that those items have been repaired, and, just touching base to make sure that you're aware if essentially what you're making sure is just nothing slips through the cracks from the day that you get the signed contract through the day that you settle. You just do not want anything to slip through the cracks. You need to be really diligent. You need to make sure that you're communicating with your team of advisors to safely settle on the property. And then after settlement, your property manager will generally go pick up the keys, and they'll launch the listing on realestate.com to advertise that property for rent. And they'll start hosting their open for inspections to get some people into the property. And, right now we're seeing vacancy rates of less than 1% in most suburbs that we're buying in. So properties are getting snapped up really quickly at the moment, which is great to hear. But just like anything in life, settling on a property is just a process. And if you're prepared and aware as to who you need to communicate with and what you need to do, then it will be not very stressful at all. But if you are unaware and if you're not prepared, it will probably be one of the most stressful periods of your life. So it's just important to note that if you are a property investor, if you will be purchasing many properties, to understand what this process looks like and to make sure that you're as prepared as possible and you've got the right people there to support you.
That's a couple of the ways that you can take the pressure off a little bit. Like one, having the awareness of the people you have to work with before you get to that stage. And even if you don't, it's like, we've worked with these people for a reason, right? Like they do know what to do, and there's no such thing as like a dumb, stupid question. It's like if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed and unsure, like we are a bit of the middleman and we're happy to sort of point you in the right direction. Alternatively, if you're stressed about the building pest report or soliciting docs, it's like just give them a call or an email and just ask them, like, I'm not sure what this means, or what would you do in this situation, and just ask them. Like there's no such... It's the first time people are doing this for most people, so it's like just like ask, and everyone's here to help. So
100%. As I said, you're not alone in this journey, and you just need to lean on your advisors at every step of the process to ensure that you get there. But thanks so much for jumping on the channel today, man, and educating people on this process. We really appreciate it. If you guys aren't aware, Hayden and I work at Pumped On Property, the buyer's agency, where we help a small number of people safely enter the property market up here in Brisbane. Now, what we do offer for everybody is a free one-on-one strategy session where we can talk about exactly where you're at right now, where you're looking to be in the future. We can educate you a little bit further on property investing, and then you can take that information and go and absolutely smash it yourself, or you can be one of the small number of clients that we work with each month. Now, to book in one of those strategy sessions, head over to our website, pumpedonproperty.com. Follow the free strategy session links to lock in a call with myself or my brother Ben. And then if you are one of those clients, you will end up working with Hayden once we've found you the right property. But either way, we just want the absolute best for you. We want this process to be as simple and as stress-free as it possibly can. So thanks so much for tuning in today, guys.
Woo!
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Have a spin.
Yeah. Oh, sweaty. So sweaty. Oh, that's good. That.
So nice, eh?
Oh.